Just weeks ago, the lives of the Fitzgibbon family changed forever, and in the worst possible way. 33-year-old Jack, the only son of former Defence Minister Joel, lost his life parachute training. He was a corporal in the Special Forces. This week, I sat down with a father still searching desperately for answers, but determined to honour his boy who died serving our nation. Joel Fitzgibbon, first of all, thank you so much for sitting down and talking to me.
Yeah, thanks, Erin. You guys have been both supportive and respectful, and we've appreciated it.
Oh, not at all. It's the least that we can do, and my condolences, my family's, and all of my viewers' condolences as well to you and your family. I wanted to start by asking you how your heart is.
Still breaking, but we're very proud of him. Thought I'd be better than that. I'm coming good now. No, look, we're very proud of him, and we are enormously comforted by the fact that he was doing something he loved. He died in service to his country. He's been, the support and the celebration of his life has been amazing, and most particularly, I'm comforted by the fact that so many now know what he did, who he was and what he did, because he was very modest. And I said in my eulogy that I've never heard him tell anyone he was a member of the Special Forces. He was comfortable in his own skin, he didn't need to.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because it would be the first thing a lot of men his age and a lot of boys would do, because it's an incredible achievement and it's, it's revered. It says a lot about him as a person.
Yeah, and, he'd say, well, deadpan, I'm in the ADF, or sometimes he'd tell a fib and say it was a chippy or something like that. So no, he just, he didn't feel the need to do that. Just like we're learning now about so many of the wonderful things he did we didn't even know about, like mentoring a young guy who we know, but we didn't know he was even talking to that young fella. And, one guy who I know sent me a text saying a number of things, but said, look, when they played footy as kids, he always wanted to be Jack. But more particularly a girl who said that she appreciated that when she was at school and being bullied, Jack would always.
It's that kind of stuff as a parent that you've done a good job, right?
And we knew 100 stories about his antics. He was a...
His naughty antics?
Yeah, he was a serial pest.
Yeah.
Used to push his mother and sister's buttons all the time. And he got himself into trouble a couple of times, always when he'd been drinking too much alcohol. But I thought I knew maybe 10% of the stories. But I now know we knew about 1%. Well, I knew about 1%, and hopefully his mother only knew about 1/4 of 1%. But I realise now that there are so many stories, it's almost unimaginable, and we've been enriched by our many conversations with many of his colleagues, many from the Special Forces community, all of whom have at least one story to tell.
You have two beautiful daughters, but take me to the moment when your beautiful wife Di gave birth to your son. As a dad, I can imagine that's hard to explain. Well,
yes, it's an event, of course, no parent forgets. And they were all very special to us, both then and now. And there were 3 and now there are 2, which is very sad.
How do you survive this?
The Fitzies are nothing if not tough and resilient. We take no prisoners, and we give as good as we can get. And I suspect that's in part because they grew up in politics. That's got an impact on your children. You know a little bit about that possibly. So we'll get through it. We're tough. It'll be okay. But I was talking to a beautiful man on Saturday night at the Commando Welfare Trust event. He was obviously a bit older than me. He was talking to me about his son. He had some advice for me. He was going to send me something to read, which he thought might help. And throughout the conversation, at one point in the conversation, I realised that it seemed to me like he lost his son some time ago, and I asked him, when did you lose your son? 15 years ago. And he was still shattered, so that gave me a bit of a fright. But You know, more than 2 weeks on, we're now laughing more than we were crying, whereas previously we were crying more than we were laughing. So I'm confident sticking together we'll get there.
Can you tell me about the moment you got that call? And it's a call that, and I'll get to this, you've had to make yourself in a former job.
Well, the reference to that call was on my way to Westmead Hospital, but I was in a restaurant in Sydney when I got the call. It was obviously the worst moment of my life.
Did they give you hope at that stage?
Not a lot, but I was trying to be optimistic about it, trying to think the best. But when Richard Marles, the Defence Minister, called me about halfway out there, you know, having made those calls myself, I knew that, you know, for the Minister to be advised meant it was very, very serious. Although I did discount it, thinking, well, he's also my mate, so maybe he lowered the threshold. And he told me that was the case the next day, but whether he was just saying that to make me feel a bit better or not, I don't know. But yeah, I said to him, it's rather ironic, isn't it, that I used to make these calls, never expecting that I'd be taking one.
When you make that kind of call, it must be horrific for you. It's clearly horrific for the family. You say you never expected to receive that call yourself, even though your son was in the military, and you just never expect it, do you? You know that it's a possibility, but nothing prepares you.
Well, I think the human, it's a guard put up by the human mind. You can't be worrying, so you convince yourself that everything will be okay. I mean, your son's jumping out of aeroplanes at 24,000 feet. It doesn't seem very rational, but you convince yourself he'll be okay. His mother worried more than I did, but not excessively. And of course, he'd always, you know, it'll be all right, Mum. It's not a problem. So no, I never really worried about him. I was more worried about him, you know, out on the town. You know, potentially driving or being in someone's car than at the wrong time than I did about him jumping out of aeroplanes.
You used to buy him an army shirt, I think, every year. Grace, his sister, was telling me, was it from Singleton?
Singleton Infantry Centre, yeah. Which was in my electorate, of course. Well, when he was about 3 years of age, I just was out there one day and they had a sort of a retail shop for some reason. I'm not sure it's still there now. But I think it might have been a military museum, actually. Anyway, I bought him this T-shirt in that army camouflage colours, green. Anyway, he just wore it and wore it and couldn't get it off him. And every year it was my job to get another one because he'd both worn it out and outgrown it, and I'd do that. And that went on for years and years. His uncle used to affectionately call him Army Shirt. You know, here comes Army Shirt, he'd say. That was his nickname. And whenever he'd pass an army soldier or an army truck passing by, which is not uncommon in Cessnock, our hometown, he'd always, or it could be on the road, on the highway somewhere, he'd say, he's Army. You know, it wasn't particularly grammatically correct, but it didn't matter if it was a person or a truck, he'd just say, he's Army. So we don't know whether this was an early indication that he'd end up serving in the ADF, because when I was Defence Minister, I don't recall him taking a particular interest, but there was obviously always something there. When
this first happened, you put out a lovely statement. It was quite brief, of course, a lot going on, but you said you take comfort from the fact that he died serving his nation. What is it about that act, and I don't need it explained to me because I get it, that gives you comfort? Well, it's an honourable way to die, I suppose, is the blunt way of putting it. And I think having been a Defence Minister brings me comfort too, because I understand who they are, what they do, what they're trying to achieve, and I know how much what they do means to them, and how much they want to put their training into practice. So I think I had a lot to do with the Special Forces guys when I was the Minister, travelling overseas. They'd protect me, etc. I'd visit them on the various bases. And I feel I know them, and therefore, you know, I feel I know how they think too, and therefore I knew how Jack thought in a professional sense. And, you know, I said in my eulogy that despite the tragedy, I don't regret him being in the Army. Have you thought about that? Have you wavered at any point? No. Definitive. What will you miss most? I know that you love to play golf with him. I know you love a beer with him. I'm sure there's a million other things.
Well, they're the primary, I think.
Were you better at golf or Jack?
Well, I was a little bit better, only because I played more.
Yeah.
Jack could hit a golf ball out of sight. Out of sight. He's the biggest hitter I've ever played with. I've played with some big, some A-grade players who are very good. It was just getting them to go in the right direction. It wasn't always in alignment. But no, I love playing golf with him. Loved having a beer with him. But just, I'll miss texting him during the footy.
You loved your nights, your Newcastle nights.
As did he.
Yeah.
So it's a constant commentary, through the game, texting. Even Nick Cronulla watching it and not be home watching.
Do you still watch and do you think of him, or is it too hard right now to watch footy?
I've lost a little bit of, short term, I'm sure I've lost a little bit of interest in footy and golf and anything else, but I'm sure they will come back. Yeah. But I won't be, texting him, that opportunity will never come back.
Have you looked back through texts or not yet?
Yeah.
I guess one of the other things that, and no parent should ever have to go through what you're going through, but the thought of him never having children and those things, that must be a really hard part of it as well.
Yeah, obviously. Yeah, obviously we think about that.
Yeah. In terms of the next step, and you've said to me that I can ask you this and I don't want to be insensitive about it, but you would be used to this from other parents who have lost kids in terms of inquiries into what happened. I'm assuming you want to know, you need to know.
Yeah, of course. And I have dealt with parents looking for answers, and sometimes angry parents, understandably. And, it's natural for people to seek to blame even, sometimes rationally and sometimes irrationally. I won't preempt any of the inquiries underway, and there are many of them, and, we're not going to be an angry family. Obviously, we sort of are embedded in the defence family ourselves. But we owe it to Jack and those who will still jump or are still jumping to ask the hard questions. And of course, we will.
What do you think his legacy will be?
Well, he'll certainly have a permanent impact on us and his sisters in particular. Well, he's a guy that both drove people nuts but made them happy. He made them laugh. I suppose his legacy will be the fact that he'll be missed by so many.
Finally, I wanted to ask, in terms of your family together down the track, how will you celebrate him? How will you won't need to remember him consciously, he'll be there all the time, but have you thought about things that you will do that are special to him? Because the funeral was a big...
Far too early for that, but it will certainly be celebrated. I know there'll be a Jack Fitzgibbon Memorial Golf Day every year.
Of course.
But I don't think either my mother, my wife, or one of his sisters, Caitlin, has got herself a set of clubs. She could be a participant. She's about to have a baby, so we'll wait and see. But as a family, he'll just forever be on our minds. We won't be waiting for a birthday or some other significant event. He'll be constantly on our mind.
The Commando Welfare Trust, I know that you wanted to say something about that. They've been really special for you and helped you a lot. Well,
it's special both with emotional support and just the hand of friendship. And look, we're very fortunate. We don't need much in terms of financial assistance, but I've seen those who have been desperately in need of that assistance in the short time I've been associated with the trust, and I just can't speak highly enough of them. And thank God they're there, because those who serve deserve for them to be there and need them to be there, and they go about their task very well.
You obviously have a very high profile, former Defence Minister, a very well-known politician, but could you ever have envisaged, obviously, the reaction, that the outpouring of love and support, it's mind-blowing?
No, I've been gobsmacked, frankly. I knew it would be big, and in fact, even in Jack's hospital room that night, I was already thinking about, you know, what's next in terms of media. I knew they'd be onto the story, but I need to say again, everyone has been respectful and supportive. The reporting of the incident has been really good and nice. But no, I could not have anticipated that. You know, I don't know how many thousands of messages I've had from all around the not just the country but the world. The bipartisan response from politicians and those close to them, it's been truly amazing. And all the people we've never. I've been on the phone to so many grown men crying who never even met Jack, and that's in part out of respect for us. They know me, but they don't know Jack, or they know Diane, but don't know Jack, or just the fact that he's a special forces soldier. People, it invokes our patriotism, I think, in everyone. It's been truly amazing.
Well, Joel, I wanted to thank you so very much for sitting down and talking with me, for helping to raise awareness of the Commando Welfare Trust. They do a great job, and I sent this to you in a text soon after, but I promise you, Dad, my dad, I know you knew well, we lost last year. He's a soldier. They used to call him Drugs Molan because he'd do all the exercises with him, even though he's 40 years older, but he will look after him, I promise you.
He was a great man, and on that point, Jack, we've lost our unofficial dietitian and physical trainer in the family. Jack was fast and strong and
yeah.
fit, and he was always quick to give the advice. And some people might say, well, why are you doing television interviews? One, to say it's another opportunity to say thank you to people. It's another opportunity to honour Jack and to ensure that people understood who he was and what he did. And it's an opportunity for me to say some nice things about the Welfare Trust, and in the hope that people will give generously to their great cause. And I should say, I wanted to say some nice things about Defence. They have been very supportive and very good, and I'm sure you found that too when you lost your dad.
Absolutely. Joel, thank you so much.
A pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, wasn't that incredible? He's such a brave man, and one of the most decent human beings that you will ever meet, and that family did not deserve what happened to them, but I thank them so much for sharing their story.